Welcome, Rick, to our show.
Thanks, Wayne. Always happy to chat.
Yeah, always great to talk with you. So, I want to ask first, what do you see as the biggest trends in data analytics in the next year or two?
Yeah, and I think that, we've kind of all reached a consensus that kind of the old way of doing things has really not worked, right? So if you call that kind of the centralized approach to data warehousing, we're into this emerging world where people want distributed power, they want to empower people at the edge, and they also want some, mechanism of governance. So I think that this trend from the old centralized way to a new, more distributed, empowered way is kind of the key thing that's happening in the industry.
Yeah, so you're talking about data mesh or something else?
Well, yeah, so that's part of the challenge, right? Is that I
Yeah,
think that everybody understood what the old way was, kind of the data warehouse.
yeah,
But in the new way, you have all these different competing terms in data mesh, data product, data fabric, and now, the, emergence of generative AI. And I
mm,
think that everybody's trying to sort these things out. And I don't think that the industry has really yet coalesced on what that new framework really is. For me, it kind of boils down to, we have to empower people at the edge because we can't do things centrally. If we're going to not do things centrally, we have to have some decentralized approach. And that can't be just total chaos. So we also have to introduce some layer of governance. And you could call that a data mesh. I think that that's as close as anything gets, but I think sometimes data mesh gets into a technology, discussion about a specific approach to that. And I think that, that still has some
yeah.
work to evolve, but that's kind of my take.
The discussion around mesh is a little mushy, you know? It's
Yeah.
kind of whatever it's in the eyes of the beholder what it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So my only qualm with what you said is that you like want to get rid of the centralized thing, right? Whatever it is, a centralized team or a data warehouse. But we've been trying to empower groups for 30 years, right?
Sure.
And you guys are on the forefront with what you do at Coginity, right? You really are empowering the power users in many regards, right? So
Yeah.
I don't think empowering the power users means that you don't have a central group, because without the center, I think things on the edge don't hold together. They just spin off into their own orbits,
Yeah,
right?
so that's why I think the word governance is so important to this structure, right? So when I think not centralized, really what I mean is we're not going to take all the data in the company and put it in one place.
Okay.
And we're not going to do all the analytic calculations in that same place, right? And by the same team, right? So I don't think we're going to get rid of the analytics team, but I think I think that we're going to move to a little bit more of a data product, type
Right,
strategy, and those data products don't actually have to all be in the same place.
right.
They have to connect to each other. And then we're going to let people at the edge use those data products in their business in different ways. But if we do that, we also have to allow them to have some governance so that, their usage becomes consistent. And it's one thing to provide a data product on all my orders. It's another thing for my marketing team to use that to calculate the ROI associated with the program, and then the finance team to also calculate the ROI of their marketing programs. And boy, if they don't have the same, definition of ROI, you've got a problem. So governance in that distributed world, that's a challenge. And I
Right,
don't think it's been completely solved, at this stage of the game.
right. So it's clear that local groups are going to generate their own products or metrics, and they always have, right? And the more ambitious ones, anyway.
Yeah.
And even the less ambitious ones should be doing that, right, for themselves. But I think, as you just argued, there needs to be some metrics and some products that are shared and standardized across the organization, or else people can't talk, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
One domain can't leverage the products of another because they're not standardized enough, right?
Yeah.
So to me, this has always been a federated solution, right? You got
Yeah.
to have the centralized metrics, data, governance, as well as the decentralized metrics and data, right? And everyone has to come together to align, right? And
Yeah.
that's where you can't just give people a tool and expect them to be empowered. You have to have the right organization, the right architecture, the right governance, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you have a chance of giving them a tool that will empower them in that
Yeah.
regard.
Yeah, that's right. And you think, well, geez, now we're just layering one more thing on top of what we were doing, right? So we were going to go build all these data structures and, use them and then let people use them. But now we have to introduce governance. So we're already slammed for our budget,
Yeah.
And I think that, one of the things I think has happened a lot this year is at the beginning of the year, we had this world where, okay, we're all concerned about a recession. All the big companies looked at their budgets. And unfortunately, I think they found the ROI of their analytics program to be wanting.
Uh,
And, so I think a lot of analytics teams and structures are under massive pressure. The turnover at the CDAO level has been enormous this year.
right.
And I think that's because, this challenge of what is this new world? If we're going to empower people, how do we reduce costs, right? And because we can't see an ROI, that's the challenge that I think we face right now.
Yeah. Well, I think you just answered my second question, which is what are the big pain points that your customers and prospects are facing?
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean,
generating an ROI for what they do and being able to justify their existence to the executives is a big challenge.
it is a big challenge, and I don't think that's going away anytime soon because I
Yeah.
think even with these new technology approaches, and I guess we fit into that, there's still this desire to, big iron, big programs over big periods of time. And, I think that leadership is kind of fed up with that. And so even though it may be that we're like, as investors, we're kind of all thinking, well, gee, great, the recession hasn't happened. Maybe we have a little bit of relief. But I don't think that that has taken away this focus on, wait a minute, I've given you guys all this money. I still am not really clear what you're doing with it. And how do I get value? And how do I get value now?
Yeah. In those situations, it's always been easy to cut the central budget and push things back down to the business units because it's cheaper. And frankly, the costs are more hidden, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
The business groups will just hire analysts, right? Or someone, give them some other title. So, well, this kind of leads into my last question for you, which is, well, how does your product play into this situation?
Yeah.
What are your key differentiators?
Yeah. I mean, so we provide kind of one platform that, we see it as a data workspace, and engineers and analysts can all use it, but we're not forcing people to go build a new data layer to use it, right? So, our customers can get up and running in a day, and they can start using it to generate analysis against whatever their data structures are. So, kind of, I think our big differentiator is a comprehensive data workspace that supports both engineers and analysts, that's flexible to adapt to whatever your current architecture is, and that allows you to evolve that architecture in a new direction over time. But we're not going to stick a big architectural program in the way, giving users power to access and build their own analysis.
Right.
And so we do think governance is important. We see it as a bottoms up function, like, kind of an evolutionary. If we empower people at the edge and we have a central catalog, we can start promoting assets and getting reuse going, moving towards, a better way. But we're not going to say, wait a minute, we've got to go define all the corporate metrics first and define a new data structure using all those metrics first, and then we'll come back and let you use those things later. I think that's a really difficult pitch for companies. I think it's very hard for the CIO, CDAO, AIO, whatever the new term is, to make that case.
Yeah.
And so, empowerment now, evolutionary governance in a common platform. That's kind of what we do.
Yeah. I mean, so you empower the power users, the people who want to write SQL to do analytics, right? So typically in the past, those folks have kind of always had their own tools and they've gone off their own and built their own things. And what I heard you say repeatedly in the beginning and just in this in response to this last question is governance, right? I was
Yeah.
going to ask, well, how do you apply governance in your tool? Well, you
Yeah.
mentioned your catalog, right? So
Yeah.
this is a shared catalog that finally all these power users who used to be kind of wild wolves out on their own now work collaboratively, reusing workflows and metrics that they each create. So you start to build up from the bottom up, a sense of shared objects that
Yeah.
run the organization, right?
That's right. So, so there's a culture of reuse. I think people
Should
want to
be.
reuse their work and they want to share their work. I mean, we survey our own customers and we survey broadly the industry. Everybody wants collaboration, sharing, and reuse. The tooling that has existed hasn't been great at that, and we made it our mission to be really great at that and to see the catalog as a publishing process as opposed to a top down, process that's going to create the perfect world first. You do need people in that world who are thinking about, when something is published, is it a standard? Do I want this to be used more broadly? But sometimes I think that we came at this for 20 years as engineers. So we wanted to define it everything up front and then go build it and then turn it over. And that's kind of the engineering process. And I think of it much more now like a biology process where it's going to evolve from the edge. And then we have to be able to promote the stuff that comes at
Yeah.
the edge
Oh,
into standards. And it's just faster that way. And you get
yeah.
people going sooner. And we've got to get people going and got to be delivering value because the pressure on the budgets isn't going away. The recession might go away, or maybe not, I don't know. But the budget pressure, I don't think that's going away. And I think the
Yeah.
pressure to deliver
Yeah.
value and to deliver that value now is key. And so empowerment is part of our world, as you know. The governance is associated with the publishing process, our catalog. Creating reusable objects makes it much easier for other people to work. And you are right that under the hood, our tool is a SQL tool.
Yeah.
But increasingly, it's less important that people know how to write a lot of SQL because of the ability to reuse objects.
Yeah. Great. Well, Rick, thank you for sharing your insights.
Yeah, great to chat, Wayne, and really appreciate what you're doing.